How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Lamed Zayin, Daf 37 of Masechta Nedarim. Friends, today's pretty interesting Daf Lemaisa. We talk about getting payment for teaching Torah, I guess. Some pretty interesting stuff here. Let's jump in. We're going to start on Daf Lamed Vav Mud Beis. So about 4 lines from the bottom, at the 2 dots, it says, Milamdo Medrash halachos v'agodos avalo yilamdenu mikra. So the Mishnah had said that if Ruvain is unable to is not allowed, is forbidden from getting benefit from Shimon, Shimon nonetheless can teach Ruvain Medrash halachos agodos, but not mikra, not scripture. Mikra my time elo. In fact, the Gemara, how come my time elo yilamdenu? How come Shimon can't teach Ruvain scripture? Mishum de kamahani le. Well, maybe it's because he would be benefiting Ruvain. Medrash nami kamahani le, but wouldn't he also be benefiting Ruvain by teaching him Medrash? Amar Shmuel b'makom shenoten tzachar al mikra ve'noten tzachar al Medrash. So the Gemara says, well, we're talking about a place where normally people would pay to be taught scripture, but not be pay to be taught Medrash. So therefore, Medrash, Shimon can teach Ruvain because it's not something that you normally accept payment for. Now, Mikra, scripture, on the other hand, is something that people would normally accept payment for, and therefore if Shimon would teach Ruvain and waive the payment and teach it to him for free, well then he'd be benefiting Ruvain, and therefore he can't do that. But the Medrash is okay, because that's something that is normally free in any event. My psako. So what are we saying over here? What it's teach the chiddush over here is that afilu b'makom shenoten tzachar ala mikra shari lemishkol ala medrash lo shari lemishkol. That even in a place that they ignore, right? Even in a place where they do accept payment for teaching scripture, right? But in some places they wouldn't. So meaning, right there, if there are places that they accept payment for teaching scripture, but not for teaching Medrash, now there are certain places that even though technically speaking they accept money for scripture, but not for Mikra, but not for Medrash, some places they also don't accept for Mikra because they don't want to get confused and end up accepting payment for Medrash also, which they don't accept payment for, right? So therefore, there are places where even Mikra they don't accept payment for, but nonetheless, even though there are such places, ala Mikra shar the Mishkol, you would nonetheless be permitted to accept money for Mikra. You don't have to be concerned, right? You don't have to be concerned that you're going to end up accepting for Medrash, ala Medrash lo shar the Mishkol, but you wouldn't be able to accept money for Medrash. Mashna Medrash to lo, how come not Medrash? The Chsiv is a pasuk says v'osi tziva Hashem ba'Yisrael lamed eschem, that it says that Moshe Rabbeinu says that God commanded him to teach. And it says, look, I taught you. Just like I taught you for free. And I guess the assumption is that that's talking about Medrash, so then you should also teach for free. Mikra nami bechinam. So then shouldn't you also teach Mikra bechinam? Rav Omar Sachar Schar Shimur, Rabbi Yochanan Omar Schar Pisu Time. That's very interesting, isn't it? That we see this machlokas. Rav says that, well, actually what you're paying for is for watching the kids, and Rabbi Yochanan says that what you're paying for is teaching how to read it, where the psukim start and where they end, how to read them, right? So you're not teaching for the actual teaching of scripture, but sort of the Facebook meta kind of things around the scripture, like, where the psukim start and end and things like that, not necessarily the content. So meaning, we're saying, we're not actually what you're paying for, what you're paying the malamed for is not the teaching the content, right? We see either you're paying for watching the kids, that's it, or babysitting, right? Sure, he's, the malamed is teaching, but he's also babysitting. He's babysitting the kids, and that's what you're paying him for. Alternatively, what you're paying him for is not the content, but, just how to break it up. You're paying him for that. Very, very interesting. It's not lo yilamdenu mikra. Our Mishnah says that if Ruvain cannot get benefit from Shimon, Shimon nonetheless Shimon cannot teach him Mikra, cannot teach him scripture. Shimon cannot teach Reuven scripture. So I understand if the reason, if normally what he would be getting paid for would be, for how to break up the psukim, how to, where to start and stop. So that is that. So I understand why Shimon should not be teaching Reuven, because it'll be benefiting him. Whereas normally he would accept payment for where to start and stop. If you would teach him for free, so then he would be benefiting him. But if we're talking about babysitting, right, that normally what Shimon would be getting paid for would be for babysitting. But if we're talking about adults over here, adults don't need babysitting, so it's not like Shimon would normally be accepting payment for this babysitting anyways. So b'ka'in katoni. So we say, well, the Mishnah is talking about a ka'in, a minor who does need babysitting. But if we're talking about minors, if we go weiter in the Mishnah, what did it say? Ava malamed is bon of mikra, that you can teach his kids scripture. Ka'in barchinamu is a minor able to have kids. Minors don't have kids. So what does it mean that he'd be? I can't be talking about a minor. It must be that the Reish is talking about an adult. So no, we could say that, look, this is how you read the Mishnah, it's missing a few words. Lo yilamdenu mikra b'ka'in, that he should not teach scripture if he's a ka'in, right? Because normally he would accept payment for babysitting, and now, if he teaches him for free, it'd be benefiting him. But if he was an adult, mlamdalo ulevan of mikra, but if he was an adult, then he can teach him and his children mikra. Meisve. Now he asks a kasha. Tinokis lo korim batchilu b'Shabbos elashon barishin. So the Brisa says that these kids, they can't first be taught on Shabbos, right? You can't teach new material to the kids on Shabbos, but they can review on Shabbos. So b'shlomo l'mandomer schar pisuk taimim. So I understand if what the payment for is for teaching them where things start and stop. So hainu dein korin batchilu b'Shabbos, right? So I understand then why you wouldn't teach new material on Shabbos, because the new material you would have to teach them, how to break up the psukim. But once they're reviewing already, so he already taught it to them. So that's why they can be taught on Shabbos, because there wouldn't be any payment, right? The payment would be for how to sort of read the psukim, and that was already done the first time around. So therefore, you don't do the initial learning on Shabbos, but you can review. So, but if you say that it's babysitting, so whether it's the first time teaching it or a review session, you're still going to have to pay the babysitter. So what difference does it make if he's teaching it for the first time or if it's a review? To which we say, but even if it is schar pisuk taimim, is that even also on Shabbos anyways? Havloyahi, v'havloya mishra shari. Friends, do you hear that? It's havloya. Havloya means it's swallowed up. And when something's swallowed up, it's permitted. What does that mean? The Tanya is we learn in the Brisa, asochers apoil lishmer satinok. If a fellow hires a day worker, you pay him by the day, in order to babysit his kids, lishmar sapara, to babysit, to watch a cow, lishmar sazroyim, or crops, einos lo schar Shabbos, so you don't pay him on Shabbos, right? Because if you're paying him daily, you can't pay him to work on Shabbos, so you don't pay him for Shabbos. Lefichach im avdu eino chayav b'achrayus, and therefore on Shabbos this guy he's not getting paid, so he's a shomer chinam, and if it gets lost, so then he's going to be potter, he's a shomer chinam. But if he's being paid for the week, schir chodesh, or being paid for the month, schir shana, or being paid for the year, schir shavur, or be paying for the shemitah for 7 years, no sin lo schar Shabbos, he can pay him, and it would even even if it includes Shabbos, lefichach im avdu chayav b'achrayus, and therefore if he's receiving money even on Shabbos, so then even on Shabbos he's a shomer sacher, and therefore if it gets lost, then he'd be chayav for the achrayus, he'd be chayav. So we say even for the schar pisuk taimim on Shabbos it shouldn't be a problem, because as long as he's not being paid by the day, he's just paying a flat fee for the week, for the month, etc. So then he would be able to teach even on Shabbos. So ela gabe Shabbos hainu taimim de'en kohen batchila. This is the reason why we don't teach new material on Shabbos. Mishum ti yifnu avahason ti yinuke mitzvosu de Shabbos, because we want that the fathers should be available on Shabbos to play with the kids. And if the kids are busy with the malamed, with the teacher, then he won't be having fun with the kids. And therefore, we want the father to have only Shabbos with the kids, and therefore we don't teach the new material on Shabbos. Alternatively, on Shabbos, people eat a lot, and the kids are eating, and they're going to be very full, and they're going to be tired and lethargic, and not in their best form to be focusing. As Shmuel said, that change of routine makes you sick, and therefore, on Shabbos they're eating particularly heavy foods that they're not accustomed to the rest of the time, so then they'll be lethargic and not be in top shape to be learning new material. Now, according to the opinion who says that what the payment is for how to break up the psukim, so how come he doesn't say like the opinion that it's babysitting? Well, he's going to be teaching girls too, and the girls don't need babysitting like the boys do. And if you say that it's babysitting, how come he didn't say that it's that he's getting paid for teaching how to break up the psukim? Kasavar pisuk time deoraisa. It's because he holds that how to break up the psukim is midoraisa, and therefore you can't receive payment for that. Who the Amar Rab Ika bar Ovin Amar Chananel Amar Rab Maidich said, what does the pasuk mean? Vayikru b'sefer Torah Elokim. They read from the Holy Torah. Where am I? Mefarash explained v'som sechel, intellect. V'yavinu b'mikra, and they understood the verses. Vayikru b'sefer Torah Elokim ze mikra. That's reference to scripture. Mefarash is a targum. V'som sechel elu apsukim. V'yavinu b'mikra is a pisuk taimim. That's how to break up the psukim. V'amila elu masores. That is the traditions. Amar Yitzchak Mikra Sofrim V'itur Sofrim V'Kerim V'Loksivan V'Chsivan V'Lokerian Alach L'Moshe Misinai. Interesting. Says Rabbi Yitzchak that Mikra Sofrim, like how to read the psukim, V'itur Sofrim, and beautifications, embellishments of the verses. V'Kerim V'Loksivan, things that are read even though they're not written. V'Chsivan V'Lokerian, and things that are written but not read. Halacha Moshe Misinai, all these things are halacha Moshe Misinai. Mikrosofim, what's examples of Mikrosofim? Eretz Shamayim, Mitzrayim. Okay, how to read these words? Oretz Shamayim, Mitzrayim. Okay. Iter Sofrim, embellishments, I don't know. Acher Tavoru, Acher Telech, Acher Teosef, Kod Musharim, Acher Nognim, Kid Musharim, Acher Nognim, Tzid Kosel Kariel. Okay, those are all examples of like verses that like have words that don't necessarily need to be there, but they're there anyways. Karim v'lo ksivan, things that are read but are not written. Pras de belechto. Alright. Is it pras or paras? Pras. Okay, the pasuk of belechto. Ish tekash ish al ish b'dvar elokim. Boim de nivnisa. La de fleta. Es de hugad hugad. What's that thing? Hugad li. Okay, fine. Well, there's a word there that's written, even though it's not. It's read, even though it's not written. All right. Where were we again? Okay, Eli de Hagoren, Eli da Seorim. Okay, Halin Karim V'Loksivan. Okay, friends, that's examples of things that are read even though they're not written. The Chosvan de Velokayan, the things that are written even though but not read. No de Yislach, Zos da Mitzvah Yidroch da Adorich. All right. Okay. Yidroch da Adorich. Chomesh tifas negev im dichi goel halein kasman v'lokarin. Okay, these are things that are written even though they're not things that are written but not read. Okay. Psukin in Eretz Yisrael, they break this pasuk into 3 psukim. Etc. Great, friends. That was Daf Lamed Zayin of Masechet Nedarim. Friends, there was some interesting stuff on Daf Lamed Zayin. We talked about paying for like people to teach Torah. So it's interesting that you say we're not actually paying for the teaching of the Torah, but we're paying for either how to break up the psukim or babysitting, things like that. That was super interesting. And also along the way we learned about this concept of havlah, which is super interesting, about being able to pay for somebody on Shabbos as long as you're not paying him specifically for Shabbos, but if it's swallowed up within sort of the rest of a bigger contract, like a week or a month or a year or more, so then that would be acceptable, which is super interesting. Friends, that was Daf Lamed Zayin of Masechta Nedarim. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.